Hey everyone, this is Leah Neiman. I'm an author, a speaker, and a consultant at leahneiman.com. And I am here with you today on a Tuesday, which is not our normal Tech Talk day, but we're here on a Tuesday because I wanted to fit in our final two Tech Talks in this series for summer. And if you're noticing, I have someone sitting beside me. This is my son and our special guest speaker for tonight, Caleb Dale Neiman. So everyone can say hi to him if anyone's here in the room. And remember, if you have some comments, you can comment in. We can pull them into the room. If you have comments and you're watching this broadcast afterwards, feel free to comment right on our Facebook page. I see those and I answer those. So comment during or comment after, either way we get those. All right, so our topic tonight is raising kids who use social media for business. That's why I wanted Caleb to come in to the room with me tonight, because I spoke about this a couple weeks ago and I was in another parent group and I was kind of, all right, I'm just going to say it. I was kind of horrified because a lot of the moms, I was hearing things like, I'm not going to let my kid get on social media until they're 18. And so we're going to just have a really honest talk about what we did in our home. So a lot of you know my background. I was one of the co-founders of CurveClick.com. And so that was an online company. And so we kind of just rode the wave along and we were using social media. And so as my kids were preteens and teens, Facebook came along and then Twitter and Instagram and all kinds of stuff. And so we were using that in our home for business. And so my kids were really at the cusp of where there was a little bit of that arguing going on in parent groups about, do you introduce your kids to social media or do you not? So, so my kids, we walk them through social media, and I think I've talked a lot about that, but I thought it would be helpful. Caleb is now in getting ready to go back for his fourth year of college. So I thought it would be helpful for parents to hear a little bit of his take on that, what that looked like with us walking them through it. And he's also using social media for business. So he kind of has a lot of perspective to share on that. So some things that we did right, some things that maybe we could have done better, and then what it's kind of looked like to be a teenager and then to be in college and then also using it for business. So I think he has a lot of different sides that he can share that would be helpful, things that I think that I wish I would have had when he was a preteen and teenager. All right, so we are going to jump in and I'm just going to start asking Caleb some questions, and he's probably going to do a lot of the talking today. So those of you that are like, oh, I'm so tired of hearing her babble, you'll get to hear someone else. All right, Caleb, so the first question, and we talked through this a little bit, so let's switch this out right here, keep us on track. I'm going to be switching out what we're talking about and putting it up here. Okay, so we're going to talk about walking your kids through social media. So you were walked through social media as a teen. So can you share a little bit about that? And we're going to divide this up into two parts. We're going to talk about the posting and maturity, and then we'll talk about the security issues. So first, talk about what that looked like, posting and maturity, and your thoughts on that, about what that looked like being walked through as a teen.
Yeah, sure. Well, I think that everybody who's my age who looks back on what they posted as like a 13, 14-year-old, it's very cringeworthy on occasions. When you go back and you're like, oh my word, I was so stupid back then. But I think the really important part was, from the moment that I got my Facebook account when I was 13, all the way up to now, is that it's been a constant learning opportunity for us. When I first started Facebook, I didn't know anything about, security online, or, I didn't know very much about security online. I knew not to open up files from, an email account that I didn't know. But as far as the social media, who can see your stuff, that was one of the biggest things that I learned. And even now, whenever Facebook updates, I go in regularly and I check my security settings to make sure that, everything is still where it needs to be. And so that was something that you really stressed, I think, to me and Taylor as we were growing up was, make sure that your security settings are up to this certain standard so that, some random person from Georgia can't view your Facebook account and like creep on you.
Right, right. But sometimes going through that, was it always comfortable? I mean, did you always feel comfortable with that when we were having the conversations, or do you recall sometimes that maybe we kind of, I don't know.
Yeah,
kind of a little bit.
I do. I do remember there were a couple times when I was probably like 14 or 15 where, I actually think it was during like the Obama-Romney election, and I posted something on Facebook because I was really mad that Romney didn't win. I was really mad about it, and you were like, you can't say that on social media, and I was like, but I'm mad about it. And there was a little stress point there in our relationship where I felt like all of my political thoughts and, because obviously I was a political scientist when I was 16.
Right.
You can't just spew anything out onto social media, just because you have an audience for it doesn't mean that it needs to be said.
Right, right. Yeah, so we did have a little bit of that tug and pull, and I think those were times where sometimes we had a conversation and then kind of just like let it sit for a little while and then came back to it. And there were times where it was more like, okay, because mom said so, and I kind of obviously knew you didn't agree with it and just hoped that maybe later you would. And there were times too that you pointed out things to me. I can remember an incident. And I think maybe you had graduated from high school, or maybe were still in high school, and someone posted something on your wall, and it was so outrageous that, do you know what I'm talking about?
I think
it was
so
outrageous. Yeah. I felt the need to respond to it, and you were like, Mom, like, you're going to, like, seriously, like, make this worse. And you were, in that case, you were right. Like, we talked about it with this particular person.
Yeah.
So we had that open dialogue, and we tried to talk calmly, about different issues, and, when do we need to maybe take something down or modify it, or when, where's that line?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So talk about security issues a little. Did you feel that was a help to, like, because when we got on, I tried to make sure that you guys knew, like, okay, how do you manage those security settings? And the big one now, and it wasn't as big when you were like younger, but Instagram, that one, like, I really tell parents, like your kids need to know how to block and report. And I think sometimes I have people not really understand the importance of that. But how did you feel about that going through it, and how do you feel about it now?
Definitely on Instagram, it is imperative that you have the ability for people to request to follow you. Because I mean, even now, like, I don't post on Instagram a lot outside of work, but I do get like the occasional like follow requests from like some random person that I don't know. And even on Facebook today, like just through work, I will get friend requests from people who are friends of, specific social media clients that I work for. And I have like no idea who this person is, and I don't really think that they need to be in my personal life. So just making sure that you lock down your images, and that you lock down kind of your personal information. Like, not everybody needs to know who you're dating, sort of deal. So that, people try, and specifically some people who might be trying to kind of data mine can't access your personal information.
Right. And I know I even try to do that with I have a Leah Neiman business page, and then I have my personal, and I have a lot of people that they just don't know, like, oh, that's Leah Neiman, but they don't go to my business page, and I try to sort that out through list. Yeah. So my friends and family, people I know personally, are seeing everything that I'm posting, especially we have an upcoming wedding and things like that. And I might not necessarily want someone that I don't know them. And I don't mind that they follow my business stuff, but I don't know them, and I don't want them maybe seeing information about you or your sister, where you're at college. I don't know them. So we've talked about those security settings and things like that because, I want you guys to feel safe at college and things like that. All right. So what was one of the biggest things that you noticed in college in terms of like social media, and even like you kind of discussed even a little bit of just online stuff too, transitioning from, okay, I'm at home, I'm in this like more secure, for lack of a better word, world, and then into college, some of the things that changed for you? What were some of the notable things?
Yeah. Really in college, that's especially your freshman year of college. That's when you go from that transition from being under parental supervision to being under very minimal parental supervision. The only people in college that are like parent figures, quote unquote, are like your RA and when you live in the dorms your freshman year. Those are the only people. Right. And those are people who pretty much, they are only monitoring like specific activities in the dorm. So you don't have anybody looking over your social media or, I think, obviously I think we're keeping up. So I always make sure that I'm careful about what I post on social media just because I have family on there. But a lot of my friends go off the deep end when they get on social media and they don't know how to handle it. And I actually wrote an article, and it was talking about it was 5 tips, 5 things not to post on social media in college. And you really see this is where kids destroy their career opportunities by posting pictures at parties, and the discernment and the judgment just goes out the window, because they can post whatever they want to. And I feel like part of that is parents just don't teach that at home anymore. That they aren't really holding their kids accountable necessarily for what they're posting on social media, and they're allowing their kids to political mudsling in high school. And it's that concept of when you give your kids an inch, they take a mile. It goes from political mudslinging or cyberbullying into, posting pictures of them underage drinking in college. And that's something that is going to destroy your career opportunities when you get out.
And I noticed a lot of that when your sister first went off to college, and we talked, I don't know if I talked or I ranted about it with you, but that was a big concern. And you're right. It's kind of like this lull. It's sometimes a real tight rein, and then kids go off the deep end. And you're right. There's really no one supervising. There's, your friends and family on social media, but in terms of no one's saying you can't do that. When it does, typically what you see is when it does get to a point where someone has to say, hey, you can't do that. It's a situation on a college campus that's way over the line. Yeah, so there's a punishment.
Yeah, it will almost exclusively deal with racism or something like that, which,
yes,
they had on Harvard's campus and even, on my campus last year.
Right.
So. Right.
And that's typically a situation that you don't want to have, because by the time it's to that point, there's usually some repercussions to those actions. So it's kind of a, all right. And in terms of because you talked to me a little bit about this, in terms of some of the classes and things like that you took, what was the level of needing to understand how to research? And even when you got to college, I tell people all the time, when you got to college and when your sister got to college, I was surprised and at how they told you guys to get right on social media. So again, if you've been told you can't have it until you're 18, and then your child goes to college, they're being told to get on Twitter because that's how you guys get your security alerts.
Yeah.
And get on Facebook, and then that's how a lot of study groups are being connected and things like that. So there's kind of twofold. Number one, there's a lot of research, but then there's the whole social media aspect of it. So can you touch on that just a teeny bit?
Sure. Yeah. So at our university, when you go in for like your orientation, they get your name and all of that stuff. You actually give them I think some of your social media information, and they link you into these like class pages. So when I started going to UND, it was class of 2018. So we had a class of 2018 page, and that is where kids put in hey, who's living in Selkie, who's taking this class. And it's an opportunity for you to network with people inside of your class to make the transition easier, especially for kids like me, because when I went to UND, I didn't know anybody. I didn't know anyone that went to that school. So I had to be kind of street smart and figure out how to network with people that I lived with and people on social media, so that I could make my college transition easier. So kids who aren't on social media right now are going to be very disadvantaged when they get to college socially, because the fact of the matter is, whether or not parents want to accept it, kids are on social media in high school, and kids who are going into college are using social media as a stepping stone to step into college. Also, through social media, you learn how to really, or at least I learned how to filter out like true and false sources. I talked to you about this a little bit. Like, I'm a history major, and in history, one of the things that you learn is, we're not allowed to use Washington Post or Huffington Post articles in any of our papers. You're not allowed to use blog articles. And this came in handy last year with the election, especially. And it's just a life experience thing that you learn. But, through social media, I learned how to, be like, hey, this article doesn't look right, and you become more informed. And so if you have that experience and you're reading something on social media, and, social media is kind of a practice session for when you go into those research writing classes, and you can be like, yeah, like this article, I'm not going to put in a paper because this is totally bogus. So yeah.
Yeah. And it's not, and I tell people all the time, like, I have a website, what some people consider a blog. So it's not that you can't read something and say it's not factual, but for using it for documenting, like and using it as, it's not a first source.
Right. It's a secondary source. It's not a primary source. Yeah. Right.
Exactly. So there were lots of things like that were helpful, that you were already on the internet. You were already doing some research that was just kind of it was an easier transition for you because you already had some exposure to that.
Yeah.
All right. So what would be your best advice for parents of preteens and teens? Because it is scary. I mean, it was even here, we had some oops moments. We had some, oh, wow, well, I didn't mean for that ad to pop up, or, so.
Yeah.
So, and that's what parents are afraid of. I mean, I do talk to a lot of parents that they carry that guilt if their kid's exposed to something. So what's your best advice for parents of preteens and teens?
I mean, I feel like being a parent is kind of a giant, culmination of whoops moments. I think that a lot of parents could echo what I say, just in my own observations. And so I think that it's perfectly natural to have one of those whoops moments, a Victoria's Secret ad pops up on a Facebook feed. That's a giant whoops moment,
Right.
And so I think that it's really important to, instead of trying to helicopter over your kids all the time, you allow them to mess up, because that's the way that you parented Taylor and I. It was like, obviously you want to try and minimize the screw up moments.
Right.
Time, like Taylor and I were never we're never scared to mess up, because we knew that you and Dad weren't gonna go off the deep end if we did, and we weren't gonna be 100% in trouble. So I think that was very important. Things like when Facebook did an update, you actually sat down with us and you showed us how to manage our security settings, and then that actually helped me in my career, because when you go into like the insights on a business page for for my business, when I go into my insights, it looks very similar to the security settings for Facebook. So I'm already familiarized with that whole entire layout. So it just makes everything a lot easier on the back end when you're going into insights on a business page for social media, just knowing kind of the Facebook layout.
Right.
When it comes to maturity thing, it's just like, when your 8-year-old tells your grandma that she has a bunch of wrinkles, I mean, it's just, kids are going to blab things out, and you just kind of got to, kind of whap them down. It, kind of like the mom, kind of like the mom tiger thing, when the babies are getting a little out of control, you got to kind of knock them down a little bit and tell them that they can't say stuff like that.
Right. Well, and that's a good point, because we talked about that last night. So sometimes on social media, it's a communication tool, right? So there's deciphering out what's a communication issue and what's a social media, what's a security issue.
Right.
And a lot of that is a communication issue. Right. So talking to your kids about, hey, like that's not something that we broadcast in a public forum, and right. Social media is a public forum. Or hey, when you say that, you need to say it with a little more kindness.
Yeah,
teaching our kids kindness.
One of the analogies that you always gave us was social media is a giant wedding. Like, yeah. You're at a wedding, and if you wouldn't say something at a wedding, then you shouldn't say it on social media, because social media is your family and your friends, just like at a wedding. And if right. you wouldn't say something openly in front of your family and friends, then you probably shouldn't put it on social media. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And then there's the actual, like, okay, security and teaching your kids to discern between, is my account public or private, or, but when those issues arise, I think it helps to kind of step back and say, okay, is this a communication issue? Is my child having trouble communicating with a friend, and that's the real issue? Or is it really like a social media issue? Like, is there a danger thing happening here? Is my child speaking to a stranger? Are they using an app that's dangerous? But once we can kind of weed that out, then we can kind of move forward type right. thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Do you have any other final closing thoughts?
No, not really. I think we kind of nailed everything we wanted to. So.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us tonight. I will be back again here Thursday at 7:00. I am going to be talking about my back to school tech tips. So I'm going to be sharing with you some new apps that you might want to be aware of as parents, some ones that popped up this summer. And then I'm going to be sharing a few tech tips to kind of keep your family organized, and some things to kind of make back to school a little easier for you as we head off into August here. All right. So you can visit my website, leahnieman.com. If you have not opted into the newsletter, you can do that on Facebook right down here below or to the side. And you can also opt in at leahnieman.com, and you will find all my entire tech series, including this one, my Tech Talk series, I should say, and handouts. So handouts for this series, along with this session, will be up there by the end of the month. So you'll want to make sure that you opt into and subscribe to my newsletter. All right, we are going to wrap it up for tonight, and then I will be back with you on Thursday. Good night, everyone.